I've spent my life trying to build my assertiveness skills, and I've spent the past year researching assertiveness training. I've by now read hundreds of assertiveness guides for women, many from the early 1970s. There were another round in the early 1990s. Assertiveness ebbs and flows in popularity. For my work with college students, I've been watching and welcoming this tide flow back in. My day job asks me to think about sexual harassment and violence prevention training, and assertiveness is a key part of those efforts, although not in the way many people think. Yes, for years, the short-sighted advice women have been given was insufficient. We've found that simply telling women to yell no, or to yell fire, or to blow a whistle has not chipped away at the rates of sexual assault. These days, we're putting a lot of hope, a lot of time, a lot of resources into bystander intervention. And I do feel much better about this, particularly because it's not so one-sided, it's not so sexist in application. Everyone is a bystander, actually like it or not, just by navigating the earth. While sometimes we can use gender norms and gender identity to an advantage with some bystander intervention approaches, this is an approach that's open to everyone, regardless of gender, of race, sex, age, or ability. Everyone has a role that they could play, and there are options, so that whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, in a position of authority or fear, there's always a strategy that you can try, even if that strategy is delegating the responsibility for responding to someone else. Bystander intervention has a strong research foundation and promising results, and it applies models from public health, allows for considerations of power differentials, and inclusivity and belonging, when that's there or not. On the college campus, practitioners quickly learned to adapt bystander intervention techniques to respond to hazing, and now it continues to expand from sexual assault prevention to gender harassment prevention, and further now to address incivility and disrespect. This adaptation and this expansion makes perfect sense, yet I have never seen a bystander training curriculum that addresses assertiveness explicitly. Although we know many people, including those who have completed hours of bystander intervention training, fail to act. They fail to intervene. Why is this? It's because we have not transformed these people overnight, or their communities. We've given them tools, yes, but we have not changed who they are. We haven't changed how they perceive and are perceived by others. We have not reduced peer pressure, to which people of all ages remain susceptible. This is part of my job, and solving these problems are part of what drives me. And I've been thinking that there's been a missing piece for years, and I think that piece is assertiveness. Since we've been offering this type of training, it's very apparent that this training can and should apply broadly. All activism is bystander intervention, after all. Someone is speaking out, disrupting, or refusing to tolerate harm, or discrimination, or injustice. Someone intervenes. And the individual can stand up for themselves, yes, and the next person that joins in, who supports them. And soon we've built a movement. Movements are built by active and engaged bystanders. Bystanders come in all types, those who are directly impacted, those who are indirectly impacted, those whose heart just can't bear the travesty of the injustice, and maybe they feel very safe from the risk of that harm themselves, but they do not wish to live in a world in which this is so. The bystander is the citizen, the constituent, your friend, your foe, parent, your child, sibling, the skilled and unskilled worker, the documented and undocumented. Our elected representatives should be active bystanders too, and that's up to them. Since bystander intervention is a tool that's available to everyone, it could cut across our divides if we let it. But it will never work if those who are trained do not have the nerve, the confidence, or the ability to engage and intervene. We're coming off years now, most recent year especially, when people and companies, but a lot of white women, let's just state it directly, have said they're listening and learning. Listening and learning and reading books. And we should be. And yes, please read all the books. But we can't sit there comfortably, listening and learning, posting content on social media, reading our books, either as a solitary, or collective act, and pat ourselves on the back. We're just scratching the surface. This is what we should have been doing all along. This and more. Why is this insufficient? Well, let me ask you this. Who's in the book club? How has your world changed since you dipped your toe in the political waters and spoke out or posted your first seemingly political content on social media? Did you even speak, or did you just post something that someone else created? Has your friend group changed? Your traffic patterns? What about your child's school, your shopping or giving? What about your church? Have they acknowledged what's going on? Have you asked them to? Are you having tough conversations about race and sexism with your parents or your in-laws, your friends and coworkers? And yes, I know, for at least some people, some of those answers are yes. But if you're feeling defensive right now, and I suppose some of you are, you must ask yourself why. Stay with me for a moment, though, because I bet what comes next will sound familiar. How many times have we seen women choosing not to engage, choosing instead to raise their eyebrows or give a slight shrug of the shoulders and retreat into politeness? And that's often faux politeness. Unless now somehow it's good manners to turn away from the harms that are happening right in front of us, to refuse not only to help a neighbor, but to even acknowledge what they're going through when the proof is everywhere. Is that good manners? Or politeness? Or etiquette? No. No, thank you. Women cannot continue to be busy drowning in timidity while the world around us burns. I do not believe the choice is actually between politeness and rudeness. I believe we've been given a false choice. Since when is it not admirable to stand up for someone who's experiencing discrimination, injustice, or inequity, or bullying, or hazing, or racism, or classism, trans hate, biphobia? Enough with the lazy and safe response of burying our heads in the sand and calling it minding our own business. That's a problem too. That norm continues to justify all sorts of silence and complicity. So what should we strive for? What's the course correct here? I believe the answer is assertiveness. Being assertive is not being aggressive. It's not being passive-aggressive either, and that seems to be a very tempting but disempowered response and position for a lot of folks. Engaging assertively means you strike the appropriate balance between advocating for yourself or your cause or for others without trampling the rights and the dignity of those on the other side. It means you engage directly and clearly, firmly and fairly. And compromise when you can, sure, but don't compromise everything all of the time. Assertiveness is not steamrolling or clawing your way to the top. It's about engaging consistently with a sense of balance. Do you give what you get? Do you get what you give? Do you know what your boundaries are? Do you guard them? What do you do when your boundaries are pressed or crossed? And do you respect the boundaries of others? It's crucial for us to be able to learn to both give and receive assertiveness. It must become regular practice. Even the one-sided girl power assertiveness that we see shared as inspiration on social media, which I like, by the way. You can feel inspired and encouraged by those. But we have to admit that you go girl in isolation has not gotten the job done. That's a shallow approach. We can't just visit assertiveness maybe 3 days before you need to negotiate a salary or ask for a raise or a promotion. We want to ignore it the rest of the time and then try to cram the night before. And we all know that's not the best way to prepare for anything. That's not training at all. And maybe you can find a script and you can fake it until you make it. And I hope that you get the raise. I really do. I'm happy to give you quick tips if that's what the time frame we're dealing with. But I know that the person who is truly advancing themselves in their career, in their relationships, are those who are exercising assertiveness skills regularly. The goal is daily assertiveness, and we can start right now. You can look around. Who are possibility models for you? Are they timid, meek, and mild? Who has influence where you work? It's not the person who chooses passivity. That person is given assignments. That person probably follows an assertive leader, or an aggressive leader, admittedly, jerks abound. But I don't want you stuck working for that person either. And you'll need some assertiveness to change your work conditions or extricate yourself from that situation. I don't want anyone spinning their wheels trying to control more than we realistically can. But let's mean what we say and engage, finally, fully and authentically, and stop wasting time. You cannot build the life you want without articulating it. You can't expect people to read your mind. You must live this true self out loud. And sure, a lot of the time, that work needs to start at home. Begin engaging assertively for yourself. But this comes with the responsibility of also engaging assertively on behalf of others. Do you care about yourself, or do you care about equity and justice? Remember, we don't get to label ourselves allies. Allyship is a verb. It is a long-term practice. It's not self-defined. You can't expect those with whom you sympathize to somehow know what you believe. And you cannot expect anyone to be satisfied with your stance or your efforts simply because you read a book. And again, please read all of the books. I'm an educator myself. I'm the daughter of a teacher. I want you to read the books. But the reading only changes the world if it motivates you to engage differently in the world around you. Where is the proof of your passionate belief? Allyship requires assertiveness in action. There's no neutral, and there's no time to waste. Everyone's dignity and humanity matters, and everyone can contribute to this work. International Women's Day is a great day for this reminder. It's a great day for a call to action. It's a day of celebration and connection, and for solidifying our commitment, not just to work on ourselves, but also in service to others.